It's time to focus on the things you need, the things you deserve. You deserve a healthy body, supplements that get you moving and keep you moving, that make you feel good, look good, do good. And they shouldn't contain GMOs, artificial ingredients, or heavy metals, ever. Supplements that are clinically studied, use proven absorption technologies, are designed by scientists, and are ethically sourced and produced. Supplements with everything you need, nothing you don't. You deserve a company that you can trust, that's dedicated to safe manufacturing practices and third-party testing, that ensures the highest quality of effectiveness from extraction of ingredients all the way to the composition of the packaging. Wait a second. You deserve to see the process. You deserve a company led by a CEO with a deep belief in the power of people, dedicated to inspiring entrepreneurs to achieve success. A company with a phytonutrient chemist and expert on natural molecules who is obsessed with human health and has your best interest in mind to design its products. A board comprised of talented doctors from around the world. You deserve to be surrounded by people you trust and look up to. Empowered ambassadors that inspire wellness every day. Leaders who are rooting for you to be the best version of yourself. A community that works hard and plays hard. You deserve to experience adventures that take you around the world, and you deserve to be recognized for your hard work. It's time to get what you deserve. It's time to shift your focus. 3.
Hello, everybody. This is Lance Smith coming to you from San Diego. Hope this finds all of you doing fantastic. It is exciting for me to be on here for Empowerment Tuesday. This is the first time I've done one in a little while, or at least this year. And so it's great to be here with all of you. And I want to thank you all for jumping on this call. And tonight we're going to have a little bit of fun. It's interesting for those of you that maybe don't know us or know my wife and I. We've been around the industry for over 3 decades. We absolutely love the industry. We've been industry advocates for a long time. We've been blessed to have amazing success in this. And honestly, there's nothing I would rather do. We've been doing this for 36 years, sharing this idea of being able to write your own path and direct your own future and have financial freedom. And we absolutely love this. When our industry is done right, there's nothing like it in the world. And it takes a little bit of a different vision to do this, for the long haul. There's a lot of in our space, there's a lot of one-hit wonders. Going back to the early days when you get some band that comes up and they have one hit, there's a lot of folks that come along and a lot of them don't make it, but some of them do hit it and they are not able to sustain it. And what's amazing over here at 3 is there's so many great people over here that have really made a career to this. And there's a whole different type of thinking. And what I want to do tonight is share a little bit of the pathway of how to get from getting started and how to mirror that with a long-term vision so you can have success. Now, I know you may be on here and you may want to maybe just make a few $1,000. Maybe we'd like to have a supplemental income. But for those of you that are on this call that you really want to do this for the long haul, it's funny. I just had my son come in about 2 hours ago and he got his W-2 and we were talking and I thought, man, the last time I got a W-2 was I think in 1992. That's how long we've been doing this full time. We absolutely love it. And I think you guys will see that along the way. We'll share a couple of stories with you. But let me just kind of start with our story in general, because as blessed as we've been in the industry, again, we've been with 3 different companies. We're a $1 billion company. We're over here with 3. Absolutely excited about where we're at with the people that we're at. The Kim Wee, who's got 3 decades in this thing. You got Christine Peterson, I think 3 or 4 decades in this. Mark Ewell, Corbin Holly, I think we've known for 20 something years now. Mark Ewell, there's just so many great leaders in this thing. And you've got some of the best coaches over here. There's no place I would rather be, but for us, our start or our beginning was a pretty humbling one. We got involved in San Diego. For those of you that have got a chance to hear us do the opportunity calls, we got married at an early age, my wife and I. We were broke. I made her a lot of promises what life was going to be like, and she didn't get any of those. And I came home one day and she was crying because the creditors had been calling her all day long. And I realized that I had to do something different. And so at that point, I started looking at different things. I was looking at traditional businesses like franchises and vending machine, going into real estate, car washes, golf course driving ranges. I mean, all kinds of things. And then someone came down. It was actually my cousin came down to show my parents an opportunity that he'd seen the night before. And I was walking in to visit my parents, and my parents were walking out because they thought they'd heard it before. And my cousin had driven 11 hours to come show them the plan. And my parents were walking out as I was walking in, and I talked to my cousin. I said, "What are you doing here?" And he pulled out a couple of 3x5 cards and started to share with me this spiel. And for me, it caught me at a point where I wasn't really necessarily looking for this industry, but I was looking. This had all the earmarks of it. I wanted to have something that I could build, my spare time. I wanted to have something that wasn't going to cost a lot, that had, a low risk, high reward. I wanted to have something that I had people that would mentor me along the way and they could coach me. And this seemed like it was it at the beginning. And he gave us we had some cassette tapes. That's where we were at back in the day. And I listened to those. He gave me a couple of books and a couple of articles and magazines that kind of went through the process. And for us, we decided to kind of give it a shot. We thought, okay, well, let's go and do this. I talked to Tracy, and she didn't quite get it, but she could tell that I was excited. And so she said, well, I'll give this thing a shot. And literally the first week we're involved, my cousin calls me up and he says, "Hey, Lance," he said, "Hey, about that thing." He says, "You don't need to do it anymore because I'm quitting." He gave it his all for, I think, a week and a half, and he quit. And I said, "Well, Len, I'm really thinking about doing this. And so what do I do?" And he says, "Well," he says, "if you really want to find out more," he said, "there's a seminar up in Utah that's next Saturday. I can give you the name of the guy who got me involved." And so I said, "Yeah." I said, "But that's 11 hours away." He says, "Yeah, I know. I drove down to San Diego last week to see you." And I go, "All right, well, I'll go ahead and go up." And so I got this guy's name. I drove up to a place called Woodcross, Utah, and I went to a high school there, and there was about 1,500 people there, and I walked in with a name. And I walked around with this name and said, "Is this to you? Is this you? Do you know this person? Can you point to this person?" And I liked what I heard. It made sense to me. And I found the person that was my cousin's sponsor. And I said, "Hey, look, we're excited about this. We're going to do something. Will you come down and help us?" They came down about 3 weeks later. They took a look at us and our lack of group, and they went home and they quit. And the ironic thing was they gave me the name of their next sponsor, and so I went back to the next seminar the next month, and with another name, and walked around and says, "Hey, are you my upline? Are you my support team? Will you sponsor me? Whatever." And I found the next one, and this is I've told this for years, but it is the truth. We actually had 7 people above us all quit within the first 3 or 4 months. 4 of them came down, looked at us, and went home and quit within about a week. And so to say it kind of hurt our self-esteem. I know we were young, and I know we were kind of green, but we were excited about it, and they all backed out. And we have a term that we've used for years called substantial penalty for early withdrawal, because the check match would have been pretty good for all those years. But what we realized really quick is that it was going to be up to us. We had a basic system that we could follow, just kind of like we have here at 3. Obviously, we've got more technology involved today. We couldn't do these Zoom calls back in the day, but we said, let's just go ahead and give this thing a shot. And so for the first year, we went out there and started to talk to people. I was doing a lot of things wrong. I was pretty selfish in my approach. I was looking at how I could get people in so I could get my dreams and goals. And after a year, we had put about 50 or 60 people in. We had a pretty good group that was growing, and they were fairly excited, but they weren't really plugging into the system. They were just leaning on us, and we were just doing meetings like crazy. And I think it was our 9th or our 10th month that we got a phone call from our top leader who said, "Hey, I've been thinking about the business. I got a promotion. I'm moving to LA, and I quit. And I called my whole entire team, and they quit too." And I mean, literally like that, we went from like 80 or 90 people to 3 people, just like that. And I remember looking at Tracy. I was obviously very frustrated. I mean, literally until probably the 3rd or 4th year, the fastest momentum I ever had was in reverse. But I looked at Tracy and I thought to myself, "Man, I quit. I don't know if we can go on." And that's the only time I've said that in 36 years. And then I remember looking at her and I thinking, and this is what I said to her. I said, "Now what? Now what do we do?" And she said, "Well, look, there's a bigger event that's happening in Utah. They're having a convention, so why don't you go up? We go up to that, and maybe if we stick around late, we can meet one of the big leaders that are there." And so that's what we did. We went ahead and went to a convention, and we sat there by ourselves. The only one we had in our business was my mom and dad. My mom and dad got involved because they felt sorry for us, but I'd take them any way I could get them back then, and so that was kind of cool. They didn't go to that event, but I went to that event, and I got a chance to. I stayed out to the very end of the meeting. I actually went. I heard there were people going to the restaurant afterwards. I went to the restaurant, the meeting after the meeting, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a chance to sit down and talk to one of my that ended up being my mentor for quite a few years in our first platform. And he gave me a talk that was, and I asked him because for me, the question was, a lot of people were saying it was a 2 to 5 year plan, and I was looking at that time. I was in my early 20s or mid 20s, and I thought, this needs to be a lifelong plan. If it's something that I really want to spend time doing, I don't want to do it 2 to 5 years and retire at 30. And so the other part was, could I make it? And the ironic thing, when a lot of people look and say, "What are the odds that that I could make it?" I thought, well, maybe if 1 in 15 or 120 make it, I got to do more than the other 20. And the ironic thing is, in our industry, you get 20 people in, and 19 of them, it's not really hard to do a lot more than the other 19 because a lot of folks get involved in this and they really don't run the race. They really don't put in the work. I mean, it's I've used an example for years that two people over Christmas buy an exercise bike, and one person loses weight and the other one doesn't. What's wrong with the bike? Well, it's not the bike's fault. I can tell you that. And a lot of folks started off with New Year's resolutions, and those New Year resolutions are already given up on. And so I knew the industry could work. I was seeing people that were successful in it, but I was thinking to myself, what are the odds that we can make it? And looking back today, after 36 years, I look at the people like a Kim Wee or a Christine Peterson or Columbo and Karen, have been involved 40 something years. We have Cindy Maddox, who's been in, I think the same amount of time frame. What is it that gets these people that keeps them able to stay? And there's a couple things that really they all have in common. And so here's what my mentor said to me. And I'll tell you, we were at Denny's late at night, so I got some props here. So here's a table. I guess I got a booster seat on. It's a little bit high. So here's what he said to me. And I'm going to actually, this is the first time I've ever done this in probably 10 years. This guy looks at me, and the guy probably ended up making about 70 million in the industry before he retired. He says, Lance, he said, here's you. He says, people get involved in the business, and this salt right here, because we were at Denny's, he said, that salt's you. He says, the problem that happens is most people get involved in the business, and they have a reason why they're getting involved. And for most of them, it's a small reason. A lot of people get involved because they want to make a few bucks. Maybe they want to supplement their income. Maybe they want to bring in their wife home is kind of a bigger one. Maybe they want to pay off some debt. Maybe they want to get a new car. But whatever it is, this dream right here, most people get involved, and the dream isn't that big, but it'll start off. And so a lot of times we think that we're going to get involved and we're going to go from point A to point B. We're going to get there real fast. We're going to have success, and not going to have anything happen along the way that's negative. The problem is, he said, here's the problem. Problem is the relish. He said, that's the obstacles that are coming your way. He said, the problem that you've got right now is, he says, these obstacles are bigger than your dream is. And he says, these obstacles are going to block your dream. And because these obstacles are in the way, all you're going to see is the obstacles, and you're going to quit. And he said, actually, you're not going to really quit. What's going to end up happening is you're just going to fade away. And the truth of the matter is, in the 36 years that we've been doing this, people don't quit our business. They just fade away. They get into a spot where they have some idea of what they want to do. They either do the work for a little while and then they stop, or something like this happens. They've got a small reason why, and the obstacles come in the way. And so he says, what happened? He says, you've got to go out there and you've got to have a big why. And when I first got involved, the first pocket calendar I had was from a guy named Dexter Yeager, one of the, he's the top income earner ever, that got recorded. And he was original mentor that we traveled with for about 20 years. And his step number one is define your why. And this leader said, you got to have a why that makes you cry. He says, you got to have a why and he pulls out the ketchup. And so I've got to sit on the side here because my props are in the way. But he says, if you got a dream that's this big, he says, if you have a why that is so big that nothing's going to stop you, a why that makes you lose sleep at night, a why that, as Eric Thomas says, he says, if you ever watch this video about drowning, he says, if I hold you in the water, how bad you want that breath? And you want that so bad that you do anything to get that last breath. He says, when you have a why that's that big, he says, when the obstacles come in the way, you'll still see the dream. He says, and the dream, as long as you can see the dream, when the obstacles hit, you'll be one that lasts. He says, but you probably won't. You'll probably be like the rest of them, and then probably quit. And I'm like, and I was a little disheartened. I says, no, I said, I'm not going to be that guy. And this guy, he was very smart. He says, yeah, he says, they all tell me that. But the truth of the matter is he says, you've got to have a why that's going to make you cry. You got to have a dream that's big. And it made us, as we went home, we started to think, well, what would life be like if we could just design it on our own terms? What it would be like? Could you imagine what it would be like if we could, if we get to a point where we could pay off our cars and we didn't have, maybe the first check that came in at the beginning of the month, we could pay all our bills off and be able to put savings away. What would that be like? And then we started to dream about what would it be like if I could replace my wife's income and not have somebody else tell her what to do all day long. That she'd be able to, as we had kids, we've got 4 kids, and if she was able to stay and raise the kids, what would that be like? And then I thought, well, what would it be like if I was able to come home and be able to raise the kids? What would that be like? And funny story on the side, there was a time when we were both home and no kids, but when you're both home and no kids, kids come. And so we had four of them. But don't make me explain that one. But anyway, so we started to go through this why of what we wanted to have. I had a dream of being able to be free, to be able to not have somebody tell me when to get up and go to work and when to go on break and when to go to lunch. And it got so big to the point where, we had bumps along the ways and we had struggles along the way. And I'd love to say we went ahead and hit every goal from that point forward, but we didn't. It doesn't work that way. Going back to a story from when I was young, I was in an Eagle Scout in the Boy Scouts years ago, and when there was still Boy in the Scouts. But we had a trip when I was 12 years old where we were going to go hike this mountain called San Gorgonio here in Southern California, and there were 20 kids, and we practiced for a year. We did some other hikes. It was I think it was about a 12 or 15 mile hike. And there was 20 of us, and we had this dream. And my scoutmaster was great because he says, when you get to the top of the mountain, you can see the ocean on one side, you can see the desert on the other side. He says, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever. And so I had this dream as a 12-year-old to go see the top of this mountain. And so when we drove in the vans to that day, with there were about 12 or 15 of us, we drove up to the mountains. We could see it way in the distance, and all of a sudden the guy pulls over and parks. I thought, can't we just drive to the top, because that would make it easier? Now we got to get out, we got to walk, and you got backpacks and all this. And so we put the backpacks on, and we started to hike, and immediately we were right in the middle of the woods, and you really couldn't see the mountain, and it was hot, and it was, a lot of the kids were struggling. But for us, there was a handful of us, about 4 or 5 of us, that really we walked faster than everybody else. And while they were all in the woods, we got a little bit ahead of them, about 5 minutes ahead of them. We got up on a plateau where you're looking at, God, the mountaintop's right there. And we heard from one of the scoutmasters that said, hey, everybody else has stopped back behind. One of the kids twisted their ankle, and we're taking a look at that. And while they were all sitting there in the middle of the forest, they all decided that they were going to go back. And so all of them went back except the 5 of us. And they said, hey, you guys want to go back? I said, no, we can see the mountain from here. We want to continue to move on. And we went to the top of the mountain, took lots of pictures, and it was a great memory for me. But I tell you that story because a lot of folks come into our industry, and you're going to have struggles along the way. There's going to be things that hit you along the way that you're not expecting. And sometimes you look and go, man, is this really worth it? And my goal for you, or my request for you, or my I don't know what I'm saying. I guess what I would say is, if you're all going to sit down for a few minutes, sit down where you can at least see your dreams and goals and keep them in front of you. A lot of people, I know it's hard to believe a dream when you're living a nightmare. But as long as you can keep an eye on your dreams, you'll be able to make it at some point. For Tracy and I, we've had, some of you know this, but the last 2 or 3 years, I've had both my parents die. I've had my best friend die. You're going to have stuff that happens to you in life. And that's okay. It happens to all of us. But if you can do it and still keep the dream alive, I promise you'll make it. It's the people who lose sight of the dream that when the obstacles come, they go away. And so for number one, the people who make it long term are the ones that actually have got a massive dream and they see it bigger. The second thing is, you've got to invest in yourself. This same mentor I was talking to, he said, you're going to probably quit. And I said, no, I'm not going to quit. And then I asked him a little bit later, I said, do you think I could do it? And he says, he looked at me and he said, well, you're in the mid-20s. You don't yet, probably not. and then he looked and I was a little shocked, and he could tell I was shocked. He said, but you could change and you could grow. And one of the things that I think, I know Kim's big in it. I knew Sam sent me a message the other day, and we talked about books that he was reading and books I was reading. But here's one of the greatest things about what it is that we do in this journey, in this industry, is this really is a self-improvement business with a product. I mean, that really is what it is. And it really is, the greatest reward you'll get out of this isn't necessarily what you're going to make, it's who you become along the way. And I'll be the first to tell you that we haven't arrived, but the further you go, the further you see, and the further you see, the bigger it can get. And the blessing that we've had along this journey that we've called, the last 36 years of our life, this incredible journey has been the fact that, we've grown. We started reading books. My first book was, it was The Magic of Thinking Big. And I remember reading chapter 2 on excusitis, and I thought, oh man, that's me in my whole life. And the next one was How to Win Friends, Influence People. And it led us on a pathway of personal growth that continues to this day. Samson was giving me, like I say, the couple books he was reading, and I told him a couple of them I was reading. And you've got to have personal growth. You've got to spend time having personal growth. A lot of people, I'll ask them, I say, would you love to have 20,000 people in your big leg and 10,000 people in your lesser leg? And all of them say yes. And then I ask them this question. I said, do you think you're ready to lead that yet? And a lot of them get quiet. And I got quiet, and what you'll see is your business will rarely outgrow your personal growth. And for a lot of people, they're out there looking to sponsor somebody who's good, who's going to build this big. But the truth of the matter is the person you need to sponsor the most is this one here, the person who's going to be good because, your vibe will attract your tribe. And very rarely do you have a leader who's, maybe a 6 or a 7 that starts, putting in 9s and 10s. You've got to become that leader along the way. And so I'm going to challenge you, if there are times I was growing outside where my group was growing. There was times I was growing inside. And a lot of times those weren't at the same time. There was times in my business where I wasn't growing on the outside and you couldn't see a lot of results, but I was reading and I was listening. And I know it changed a lot today. I still love books. That's the platform I use. I know there's podcasts. I know there's a lot of great things that are out there. You can get with your support team and see what they recommend. But I promise you this, that your growth in this business and your longevity in this business will be directly in proportion to the amount of reading and listening and your personal growth along the way. Very rarely does your business outgrow the leader, because if it outgrows the leader, ultimately it's going to come back, because there's an equilibrium out there that really, if you have to have a certain amount of leaders to sustain the growth. And it was great to be out in Vegas with Daniel and a lot of the 3 stars and above. And I know there were a few guests that were at that one that snuck in. That was great. But it's great being around leaders because, to be able to talk to, he'll see the vision and that leadership group, we're looking at expanding that. At this point in my career, it's not necessarily making another $1,000,000 or whatever. It's pass that along to the next person and being able to see other people do the same. And so make sure that you're doing personal growth. And if you find yourself stuck, if your group's not growing, there's a story I've used for years about a guy who was a football player, and he was working for a company in a sales position, and the sales manager came in and he was complaining to everybody, and he said, hey, the sales are down at this company, and we're not growing the way that we want, and I'm in charge of all 300 of you, and none of you are performing the way you want. And he looked at the football player and he said, why don't you tell the everybody here what happens, if you guys aren't performing? And the football player looked at me and says, well, if the whole team's not performing, we fired the coach. And that one right there is kind of a biggie for you. If you want to be a big leader, look in the mirror, and that's really where it starts, because the biggest battle is not going to be out there. The biggest battle is always going to be in here. It's going to be the 6 inches between your ears. And when you get that part right, the rest of it's going to come and play. And that's why you can find somebody like a Kim or a Christy Peterson or a George and Adrian have had success in other companies, and they're able to take that success and build, start again and have the same type of success, because it's all the mindset of what you have in place. And so number 1 is find the reason why. Number 2 is commit to a lifelong personal growth. Number 3 is, and this is an important one, is put your goals in concrete, but have your plans in sand. And this is really was the title of my talk, is that there's short-term goals and there's long-term goals. And the short-term goals are really important. I mean, we have promos, we have stuff all the time. And I know people are always shooting for goals right now. We have the core 3 and the core 3 builder promo that goes, I think, until May 4th. And I know a lot of you are running for that really hard. And I hope you guys see a bigger picture. I hope you're not focusing on the $100 or the $300 if you're a core 3 builder, because the truth of the matter is, if you're doing that kind of volume and you have it spread between your different legs, you're talking about cycling 3 or 4 times on the core 3. A core 3 builder, if it's on your lesser leg and you've got some roller volume, you're looking at $1,000 or $1,500. Samson and I were talking about the numbers the other day. And it's a lot bigger picture than that. So those promos are good. Certainly running for ranks are really good. They're a great thing. But again, you put your goals in concrete and you put your plans in sand. And what I mean by that is I ran, I've always run from a financial standpoint. I like running for money goals. And if I cross a pin along the way, so be it. A lot of people come in and they run for pins, and they hit a point pin real quick, and then it kind of goes backwards. And I never wanted to have that. I wanted to have a consistent business. And so I've always set goals. And so I remember one of my first goals was to make $2,000 a month. And I missed it by 6 months, and I was frustrated. And I set a goal to make $5,000 a month. And honestly, I missed it by, I think, a year. I set a goal to be able to have my wife come home. I missed that by a year and a half. I set a goal for myself to become financially free. I missed that by 3 years. I set a goal to become a millionaire. I think I missed that one by 5 years. And we set goals from there, from a financial goals, and and I missed every one of them, but I didn't, because the goal was in concrete, the plan was in sand. And every time I miss a goal, the beautiful thing about this is nobody can fire you. And you have the ability to start over again and say, okay, well, we had a good run. What did we learn? What didn't we learn? And we've always used a term of plan, do, check, and adjust. You make a plan, you do the work, you check to see what's working, you adjust, and from there you come up with another plan and you do some more and then you adjust and then you already check and then you adjust again. And we've continued that pattern for 36 years. And that's how we've had the record that we've got, or we've stayed in as long as we have, is because of that pattern. And so, have your goals and concrete your plans and saying, it's funny because I'm a fisherman. So I have behind this wall, behind me, I got a big fish right there. Actually, Tracy caught that one. It's a rooster fish from down in Mexico. But on the other side of that wall over there is my garage. And on the other side of that, I've got a 30-foot offshore boat that I've probably put 1,000 tuna in the last 15 or 20 years. I absolutely love it. It's an offshore boat. And when I leave out of San Diego, I have a bunch of electronics on my boat. And I'll head out of San Diego, usually around, at gray light when it's just starting to get light in the morning. We turn Point Loma, and on my electronics, I'll point a point, and it could be up to 100 miles away that we're going to go fish. I've got to do the research and find out where the fish are at, where the sport fleets are at. I put a pin in, and it's funny because it draws a straight line to where that waypoint is, and then I take off. And what ends up happening is, the goal was to go from point A to point B, and the faster you can get there, a lot of times they'll say you'll be there in 2.5 hours. The goal is always to get there. And I think, okay, well, I should get there in 2.5 hours. But the truth of the matter is the wind kicks up, the fog comes in, there's tides that move back and forth. And all of a sudden I find myself zigging and zagging, and the good news is I've got a line because I know where I'm going and I can get off course. But when I do, I try to correct as soon as I can. And it always takes me a little longer to get there than I expect, than I hope for. But the fact of the matter is I get there along the way. And the same is true here. I know if you've got some goals, you're where you're at right now. Maybe you want to go 3-star, maybe you want to go 3-star pro or elite, or maybe you want to go 4-star or go bigger, maybe 5-star, 6-star. And you've got a goal to get there. But the thing about it is this is, again, like I don't know where the relish is. These things come in the way, they sit in the middle. And as long as you've got a dream in the middle, behind it that's bigger, you'll keep going. And it's okay. Again, a lot of people get involved. And I know for me, I thought, okay, I'm going to go run. And I started doing this stuff that was kind of, we had a system that, hey, here's what you follow. And you guys hear about this system every Tuesday. Here's how this program works. And it's up to you on whether you're going to follow that or not. And, some people get weight, but as long as you kind of keep moving, the thing is, if you can zigzag, ultimately at the end, you stretch the line out. That's how long it's going to take you to get there. And I mean, obviously the straighter you go, the better it's going to be. And so those three are really the key ones. And there's some other keys that kind of come along later on as you build it big. I was going to go in a little bit more depth, but I'm running through time pretty quick tonight. And I'll have to cover it more, but to go on the long term, you're going to have to change some things along the way. And one of them is to learn to love the journey along the way. A lot of people get involved and they have a destination addiction where they, when I get to this point, I'll be happy. And the truth of the matter is, if you're going to make this a lifetime, make a career, and help us build a legacy business that we're all planning over here at 3, you got to learn to enjoy the journey along the way. You've got to learn to be able to enjoy each part of it, to be able to celebrate your wins and celebrate. You can mourn some of the losses, but celebrate the wins and make sure that you enjoy it. For me, I was one of those guys that, hey, I'll be happy when I'm 60, and then I'll be happy when I'm 21, and then I'll be happy when I get married, and then I'll be happy when I have money. And I set myself up in a spot where, even though we had success, we bought the house we live in today when I was in my mid 20s. By the time I hit 30, I was living in this house. I had a 42-foot motorhome on the side of the house. I had my boats. I had cars. I was financially free, and I was unhappy. 30 was really the toughest year I've ever had in my industry, or in the industry, because I hit my goals and I didn't have new ones. and one thing I'll tell you is always keep the goals out there in front of you. I had to sit down after going through a little bit of depression for a few months, like, this is it. And really find out what it is we wanted to do, what we wanted to do in the long run. And we took that time and decided, we want to help a lot of our friends be free. And over the next bunch of years, we've been blessed to help over 50 people become multimillionaires in this space. And a lot of them we're very dear friends with today. And some of us we're still working with hand in hand. And we love that part of it. But the things will change a little bit along the way. But as I kind of cruising through the timer here, I want to assure all of you this, that it's not an accident you are here. In the 36 years that I've built this, I mean, if you were to look at the industry as a whole, or you look at where we're at as a whole, right now at this point in time, we've come out of, I think, one of the toughest 3 or 4 years of 5 years of my lifetime. The world kind of got put in a funk. And if you were to pick an industry to be in right now, what would it be? I think the working 40 years for somebody else, that's kind of a dead deal. I mean, when I was in school, they told me, get a good job, get a good education, go work for a good company. You take care of them, they take care of you, and you live happily ever after. And those days are gone. And right now, if I were to pick any industry that's out there to be in right now, I would absolutely pick this industry. This industry, as I said, one done right or one done correctly, is the best industry I've ever seen to be able to lift people up. Yes, there is no free lunch, and you've got to put in the work, and you've got to pay your dues, and you've got to stay consistent. But compared to anything else out there, I've never seen anything like this. And so this is the best industry to be in. And if you're going to be in this industry, there are some companies in this industry that give it a bad name. And again, I'm a real big in calling winners and losers. When you see somebody who's being fouled, I'm the first one to say, hey, wait a second, let's do this so it doesn't hurt the industry. But unfortunately, you're going to have that with any industry, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a business. I mean, whatever it is you do, there are certain people that don't treat it right. For us, if you want to build it long term, you've got to love people and use things, not use people and love things, is the way that I look at it. And you got to be around the right people that feel the same way. And really, that's how 3 was formed. What you'd want to do in an ideal space is you'd want to find a company that would have that would be a newer company that's got a vision of building $1 billion brand. It doesn't have to be a brand new. My first platform I got involved with was it was around, I think, 8 years before I was born. I got involved 26 years later, and I was still we made millions of dollars with that company. And so it doesn't have to be new, but it has to be done right. And what I love about the space we're at right now at 3 is first of all, you got to have a leader that has the vision. And anyone who is in Vegas, anybody who's been on the calls and been around Daniel knows without a shadow of a doubt, he's the guy who's got a vision to take 3 to the biggest of the top echelons of the entire industry. I have no doubt in my mind that this is $1 billion company. I believe it was $1 billion company from the inception, because there's so many people. If you take the top 20 or 30 leaders that are over here, I think, and Kim obviously being the biggest, and Samson being a big part of that, and others that they've been around like us for a long time. I think $20 billion in total sales the last 20 years. Just by default, with the leadership that's here, we've done this before. We've stepped up to it, and to have Daniel be in his mid-40s and have the energy that he has, the work ethic he's got, the fact he brought Tyson on board. We've known Tyson for 20 years, one of the top executives in the space. We are so excited to see Tyson coming over here and be part of this team. Dr. Dan, I can't say enough about him. I know you guys all love Dr. Dan. Troy Moore, this whole team that put together. I mean, this is outstanding company, outstanding compensation plan. And even more so than that, you got to have the right leaders in the field. And I mentioned a bunch of them that are here, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, in 36 years, I've never seen a leadership group or a core group like we have right here. They're ethical. There's no, my last platform, people would go across stage and people say, I wonder what deal they got and I wonder what happened here. And it was just kind of a toxic environment. And I'll tell you what, we are so grateful, for us. You heard my story, but in 2022, we had a heart attack, or I had a heart attack, and thankfully I was in the hospital when I had it. I recommend that if you have one, to be in the hospital when it happens. But it made me wake up and look at it and say, how do I want to finish my life? What do I want to do here? And, I know you guys have heard Kim's story about, she was on the same path, and we were praying for something, and we looked at a lot of companies, they didn't have the pieces that were there. And when we sat down and talked with Kim and Samson and got together with Daniel, and this idea was started, and then Corbin and Holly and the buying, and just all the pieces came together. You couldn't pick a better spot than where we're at right now. And I'll tell you, there's not a day that we don't wake up and thank God that that we're in the space that we are with the people that we're involved with, and we absolutely know that we're going to knock it out of the park. And I know some of you are on this call, maybe a year from now, maybe the obstacles will get too big and maybe you'll go away. But I know there's some of you on this call that none of us have ever heard of before. Maybe even the person above you does. A couple above you doesn't even know who you are. But I promise you this, that you've got an opportunity that if you stay the course and you get involved and you have a big dream and you're willing to put the work in, and you're willing to work on your personal growth, and you're willing to go out there and overcome the obstacles, and set some goals, and the ones you miss, shake them off and just keep on going. There's going to come a point, maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years, where the whole world of 3 knows exactly who you are. And we'll be sitting on this call listening to you as we take notes about your journey and listen to your story of how you went out there and put it together. And I can't wait for that date. It's the reason why I'm here at 36 years. A lot of people look and they say, what was retirement like? And for me, people don't really want to retire. What I want to do is I want to have freedom, which we've got, and I want to spend time with people that I love, that are like-minded. I was thinking of that call with Kim the other day, and Les Brown, and just listen to that conversation. I thought, how cool it is to be in a space where you can listen to legends like that and learn from them. I want to spend my time with people like that. And I want to talk about the things that are right with the world and make the world a better place and pass the vision on to the next person so they can do the same thing. And that is our prayer, is that you go out there and you grab a hold of this thing and you join us. Right now we've got a vision to build this to $1 billion brand. We need another 1,000 or 2,000 leaders to step up. And again, I don't care where you come from. I don't care if your sponsors all quit. I don't care if your groups quit. I don't care what it is. I just pray that you've got the fortitude to have the big dream, to set the goals, to work on your personal growth, to stay in action, get consistency, and to go crush this thing. Because I'll tell you what, again, I've seen people from all walks of life, and some of maybe have made more money, not a lot of them anymore. But there's nothing I would rather do than what we do today. We absolutely love this, and I know that you guys are going to love the journey as well. And so with that, I am out of time. I thank you for joining me tonight. God bless you. Have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to hearing your success story soon. Take care, everybody. God bless.